Thank you. Obviously, my name's Liz. I work for Remu Hosting, and downstairs we have a company called Rocket Spark. So where I work is doing servers, VPSs, etc., and Rocket Spark down below us, they do everything like web development, etc., and stuff like that. Kia ora. We had a... There's a lot of statistics out there about women in tech, and there's millions of them from millions of sources. Some are dated, some are absolutely not dated. The key ones that I thought to take away are, there's like 38% of girls that start technology in high school, and yet there's only 27% of them that make up the workforce. There is a loss there. Kids get into high schools, they have peer pressure, you have social expectations, stereotypes, and the whole thing. And I think there's a lot of people who are just trying to keep that disconnect. Where are we losing them? Why are we losing them? And work with that. And that's kind of where ShadowTech comes in. And ShadowTech is an organization that brings girls that are in high schools through to working with companies just to shadow them for a day to see what you do and how you do it. So there are some studies about, what happens in workplaces and how women get treated in IT. And historically, it was really, really toxic. Back when I started out, you develop a thick skin or you leave, and a lot of people just left. And the thing is, though, with the statistics now, they're saying that people are saying they've got more gender bias and discrimination now, but I'm not convinced, I'm not sure, I don't know if it's actually a discrimination or just we're more aware of it, because there was a lot of stuff before that was just an expectation of gender roles and assumptions and similar stuff like that. So I don't know the exact stats on that particular part, but that's the way I see it. Is people are way more aware of aggressions, microaggressions, and just people saying things that you've been told by other people or parents, and you just repeat things and don't think about it. But now we're becoming way more aware of it, which is good, because we should be more aware of it, so then we can change, obviously. So yeah, ShadowTech is in New Zealand. I don't know if they have an Australian or other equivalents. It's run by women in IT, doing various different IT roles, and you can sign up and they basically try to break down a lot of the myths and barriers. And I think when you're in high school, you don't know what jobs there are in IT or that women can do in IT. You tend to have that whole stereotype that it's a male thing, and girls can't do programming, they can do graphics only, or they can do, which they absolutely can, but, there's so many jobs in IT, you can't just say, I just do IT, I do, this specific part of IT, I might just do Windows, I might just do fixing printers, I might, do programming, I might do design, and they're all under their IT banner, right up to management. This is a video, the ShadowTech video they actually did whilst I was doing my thing for school, with the school, so I'll play this.
ShadowTech is a national initiative where we take girls from high school and they go to organizations that have a very strong tech focus, and they spend one day with their teams there to fully understand what tech is about and all the careers opportunities that you can find there.
First of all, I just thought it was all online and just coding and just designing sort of things online and like designing websites. But now that I can see it's like a whole bunch of different things, like it could be to do with health, it could be like a different range of sectors.
Tech is the fastest growing industry in New Zealand. It also pays great salaries, so it's a great industry to get into.
It's pretty awesome. It's not every day you get to get an opportunity like this.
I like that there is women in there that have made a living out of it, and I'm really happy doing it.
Everyone being so friendly and nice, just welcoming. I liked it a lot.
They have loved it. One of the first things I was told when we got a break at lunch is, thank you so much for bringing me on this trip, miss. I'm having so much fun today. There is something for everybody in tech. You just have to find the part that is for you. That is your love, your passion and your drive.
So the last person who was speaking there, she was actually one of the teachers of the high schools. And she was fantastic. She was really articulate and really good. These kids came in and they kind of didn't really have an idea that they wanted to go into tech at this point. So, they were kind of very, very early game in high school kind of thing. So, yeah, Rocket Spark signed up for this. They've got a really, really good balance of men, women in their company, and they're very good with equal opportunities and promoting and doing stuff. And they have a really good wide range of, we do everything from development, sales, UI, everything. The one thing they don't do is servers, which is why they kind of ding upstairs, and hey, you've got a female co-worker there who's doing servers. And that kind of, my boss was like, taps me on the shoulder and is like, hey, you don't want to do this? I'm like, yeah, why not? I've done similar stuff working with high school students and robotics clubs, so I've had a bit of experience. So they had initially 3 schools that we were going to put through us because there's not a lot of IT where I live. We're out of Auckland by a couple of hours. We're in a small town in Cambridge. So we kind of had that Hamilton area and other stuff, but there were some other Hamilton companies doing those. So then eventually one of the schools did drop out. So we ended up with 20 girls from 2 different schools. And we decided when we were just meeting them that we were going to split them between half in one company, half the other, and then halfway through the day we'd just switch them around so they could, test the best of both worlds. And yeah. So we had quite a few meetings and video conferences, and it was kind of all organised by the bosses and the bigwigs, and I was just kind of in on the meetings to a fair degree. It was interesting how the teachers, like we did an introduction, you kind of go, oh, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I do, I'm so-and-so. And at that point, I kind of felt very small in the scheme of things because, CEO of that company, CEO of my company, and I'm just a, techie. And how the teachers even just introduced, how many children, I'm so-and-so from this school, I have this many children coming in. And even right from that go, I noticed there was issues. There was one was an all male, maybe 60s, I'm guessing. I have no idea. He introduced we have 9 girls in our class, and one boy he thinks he's a girl and dresses like a girl. At which point I'm sitting there going, do I speak up? And I'm like, yes, stuff it. And I speak up. I say, excuse me, these are children. They've got enough to deal with. They've got enough crap to. The last thing they need is to be picked on by teachers, or you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to understand it. Just respect their choices, their names, their gender pronouns, whatever. Even if you think it might be a phase or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. We're here to teach the children, and that's the important part. We're not here to make judgments or anything else. And the teacher afterwards, the one that was the second one, the last one speaking on that there, she introduced her school afterwards. And I could see her grinning the whole time I talked to the guy. And it turns out she's actually lesbian and really, really amazing. And she introduced her children. She did a subtle jab of, we've got 8 female-bodied females and 2 female-bodied non-binaries, etc., etc. And I'm just sitting there grinning away, But, it made our statement quite clear from the start that we weren't going to tolerate crap, which was really quite good. So we had all these plans of, how we were going to arrange the children with, what time they would come in, what we're doing for lunch, and how that. And then my boss went into hiking, and then he got sick. I think I'm not sure if it was COVID or just a really bad sickness. He was off for like a couple of weeks, and we were doing some other stuff with work, and everything got, and I completely forgot about it until my boss messages me on like one day. He's like, oh, don't we have like all these kids coming tomorrow? And this is about 4 p.m., and I'm finishing work, and I'm like, oh, shit, I haven't done anything. So I'm just sitting there, panic. So I'm like, how do you make your job sound interesting? If you're doing programming, you can show them code. If you've got graphics, you can show them graphics. You're fixing servers remotely, you show them a little black box with text. And so I'm sitting there just going, what do I do? How do, and I have done robotics with kids, and I've interacted with kids. I quite enjoy older teenage kids. I think they're really interesting to listen to. And they're doing things that I didn't do when I was a kid. They've got questions, and they've been on the internet, they've opened their eyes, and they see what other people are doing, and they're taking chances and doing things without you even having to ask, or it's not like, they're just doing things. And some parents aren't even aware of how smart their children are and what they're doing. When I was doing robotics, I would get kids coming in going, oh, I've got this Linux thing I installed. And I'm like, geez, back in my day, it wasn't just I installed it. It was a full-day event, and all your mates came over. they just chuck a CD in and it just works, And they're like, how can we learn more? And I would sit there and say, oh, well, here, have some Linux from scratch. It's a website. It will show you where to go. And they'd come back 2 weeks later and go, yeah, I've done that. That was great. Thanks. And I'm like, this is not, Anyway, so I had a few ideas and I ended up staying up past midnight a little bit. I only had to occupy, because we had 2 groups, we split them half the day each, and they kind of came in late, left a bit early. So we kind of had about 2 to 3 hours for each group. So I was like, well, that's not too much. I can, But then how do you fit your job? I'm installing in VPS's servers, we're doing networking, we've got routers, the whole works. How do you even explain that to somebody who was really, these kids are like just coming into high school. They're not really technical. They kind of have an understanding of what a website is and stuff like that, which is great for Rocket Spark, but not so great for me. So I'm sitting there going, how do I explain it? So I thought, I know that people learn differently. I tend to learn by watching and doing. And I thought, well, also kids like watching and doing. They don't want to sit there and just hear me speak like you guys do for an hour or 2. And I also am not really good at slides. I actually paid a 12-year-old to do my slides. I bribed him. He wanted me to help him with something in Minecraft, and I said, yeah, but I can't, I've got to do slides. And he said, oh, give me your notes, I'll do it. So he did a lot of these, hence why we have all these really cool memes and stuff. Hi, Chris. He said he's going to look at it online. So I had a slideshow to start off with, which showed photos of data centers, and they didn't, to be honest, I actually struggled to find photos of data centers that actually looked realistic, not sci-fi with all the lights and the cool stuff. But I was able to explain to them that these are computers, and we put them in they're funny shapes, they're not normal shapes, they're skinny, and you put them in these rack things, and then you have hot and cold aisles, and just explaining them. They're always on the internet all the time, and they're wired in, and here's some really cool wires, and just showing them, photos, and you can see the kids' eyes just glazing over at this point. And I was like, and then, I tried to explain what Linux was, because they run Linux, and so I'm sitting there saying, well, it's kind of like Windows and Mac, but it's Linux, and And of course, kids don't understand what Linux was, so I was like, well, what are the memes I had to leave in there? It was good. Here's another one. It's another criticism. So I was like, and so Linux is like my desktop, so I exited my slideshow to show them my desktop. And kids being kids, it's not a particularly fancy desktop. But the kids picked it up very, very, very quickly. It's a Minecraft icon. Hey, you got Minecraft. Oh, you've got Steam. You've got normal apps like I do. And so that was a kind of we're suddenly picking up. We're interested. So I'm glad that you saw that, because today you're setting up a Minecraft server. And I had sat there the night before, and I'd set up two VPSs through work, just borrowed the boss's resources. One was on a shared host, which didn't have a whole lot on it, and the other one was on a dedicated host. And the idea was I was going to split them into 2 groups, because we had 10 in each group, so 2 groups of 5, one on each side of the table, and they can almost kind of compete to set up a server, but also they can collaborate and work with who is good at what. I had a document. It was literally just like copy-paste type stuff, so it should be easy, right? And I figured that, it would take them a bit to get through that. So the reason I chose Minecraft was it's very well known. It's a sandbox game. It's got a massive following. And, a sandbox game is like people who like to build can do it. People who like to fight can do it. People who like to do redstone, which is like, don't look at it if you're a programmer. It's horrible in that regards. But, it's important, and it's really good for learning, and everyone kind of has at least, a large portion of it. And they do use it in schools for education, which is good. But also it was really good because I knew that I could tie in a lot of learning points into without actually them realizing they were learning things, which is a really key point for kids. If you're telling them things, it just goes, psh. But if you're letting them play with things and realize for themselves, they remember it, they understand it. Also, I was tired and didn't have a lot of prep time. So this is pretty much my instructions, which was, you have to SSH in the machine. You have to, the login is a root. I had an average password, you copy paste, I forget what it was at the time. I had like the 2 machines, so you had group MC1, group MC2. And, I had to explain that, when you first connect, you're going to get the SSH authentication. And so, and then they had to install Java, which was pretty basic. You just install it. I made it as simple as possible. Then you have to add a Minecraft user, and then you had to log in as that Minecraft user. Once you did that, you make your directory with Minecraft, you download your server jar, and then this is how you run it. So it wasn't a huge amount of steps, but to them, some of them look at it and just, panic. The hardest part was probably the SSH. They didn't know what it was. They didn't understand what they were doing and how they were doing it. The hardest part, because we had two schools, one was the lower socioeconomic with the 60-year-old male teacher who was, very old school, and the other was a more better off school with a lot more advantages and a teacher that was young, hip, into the kids and talking to them. And so it was really interesting to see how they reacted very differently to starting out and whether they could just jump in and give it a go versus, I don't want to touch this, I'm a little bit scared, I don't know anything about this, what am I doing? And yes, that top line I think is still another criticism, because he had no idea what half the stuff was. He was just like, what is this thing? So this thing is, it doesn't matter what it is. They don't need to understand what the thing is they're using at this time. At this point, they're learning, they're just getting to use it, to see what it is. They don't need to understand fundamentally what it's doing other than connecting to the server to do some stuff. So we're trying to make it fun. I was trying to make it fun and adding a few jokes in, and deliberately knowing that some jokes would go over certain teachers' heads. So you have to download a SSH client, and of course you don't want to enter your personal details into a download page, so you just use any old name like, Joe, Dees, Seymour. One teacher sitting over in the corner is like, and the kids are pissing themselves laughing. And the other teacher joined in and she was just like, these are all memes, if anyone who doesn't know, just FYI, Dees is, I'm not going to say that one, no, I've been told not to watch my language. But yeah, it's a way of breaking down the stress and the anxiety and being able to have a joke and a laugh together and get the communication and talking, just breaking it down so it's fun and you're having a giggle and it's, this makes it easier. And of course, you've got the root user. That's another Chris picture. He was like, what? Which is exactly what the kids did. You're logging as root, like, root, And it was very interesting at this point also seeing the difference between the confidence kids here jumping in and going, we're just going to do all this and run all these commands and copy paste, and then getting a little bit too eager and maybe skipping steps, and everyone's trying to do it instead of work together. Of course, then why can't I log in as that user? Oh, because that person user created it already and they've got a different password, or they've reset the password and then they've crashed the machine. And it's great, I just hit the reinstall button, we're good. We're good to go. But they understood and they had to learn why you don't want to do things as an admin user. It was a subtle learning curve, but it was a good one. Whereas the people who were a little bit more shy about it, they were scared of breaking things, they were scared of being told off, or they were wrong all the time. They had a very different attitude and they were a bit more cautious about everything, which is interesting because those are the kids that most people would normally say, you bad, you don't, you can't, you're bad, you don't touch that, you're going to break it, kind of thing. Whereas other kids could do no wrong. Yeah, so the SSH part definitely took the longest, getting them over that learning hurdle of adding something to connect to a username, to try and have a fundamental of what are we actually doing here. Once they got past that, it actually went really, really quickly. It actually went a little bit too quickly. So they logged in, they were able to install Java, they were able to check the version was correct version, add another user, put all the stuff in, and then they had a Minecraft server. We can connect to it, this is great. So they did. And then, so I said, well, we've got another hour to go yet. Let's try and crash the server. At which point the kids were just like, oh, do what? We're not allowed to do that, though. That's taboo. So yeah, well, I use the dedicated server, obviously not the shared one, guys. Wouldn't do that to our customers. So yeah, it was interesting seeing how we would crash the server, because you've got your server-side lag and you've got your client-side lag. And of course, it's really interesting. The kids were trying to work this out. They were doing things like, we can do all these things with animations and stuff. And yes, it made you laggy as anything. but it didn't crash the server because they had the console and they were looking at console errors. And then some of them were like, oh, I've seen online people put, mine carts on, stack them all up and stuff. And others were trying to just spawn lots of things with their hands and all that. And it was, yeah. And so then I would bring in, I was like, well, let's make a redstone loop. This is how we do it, and show them all that. And they seemed really surprised that a woman knew how to do redstone. That's a boys' thing. But yeah, and it's really funny. And they just don't, it's a stereotype. It's breaking down those stereotypes. They're just like, how do you know that? What? But then we started having like dispensers with spawn eggs and different spawn eggs and wardens and blazes and, and it was great fun. And then they're also logging into the console and killing each other and and doing all sorts of fun things and just blowing things up because why not? You can have fun. So we're kind of having fun, but they're also learning about, latency, FPS versus TPS, and, I can explain it at the time, which was great. So yeah, this is when I ended up killing all the entities at one point here. There's 485 entities killed. Yeah, I think there was 1,000,001 minecarts. It was really interesting though because we had quite a bit of fun doing that part actually, and it was really good because they learned a lot of stuff. Oh, here's a video. I had to take some of the vocals out of this. So in this video, they're looking at the console, and this girl who you can see in the picture has a console. And she was actually killing her friend who was playing next to her. So you can kind of ignore all the rest of the talk around it. Just
supper. We can dance. What? I drank like 2 litres of water. That sounds like you problem.
Skill issue.
It is. What is somebody just
Yeah, so that was basically just the gist of it. That's kind of what we were at that point, yeah. And it was quite fun. It was fun for me, fun for them, and yeah, it was just pretty much a few hours of great fun. So yeah, they did learn a lot of basic understanding of servers, kind of what they are, how they work. It's not so scary because we did something fun with it and they're having fun. I think editing files went surprisingly easy. I was actually surprised at how easy, because they have to edit the EOLA and set it to true when they've installed the server. And I thought that would be a hiccup point, but in actual fact, the SSH was definitely the hardest part. Was just, and that I would have thought would be simple. You download a client, you just go connect. But that was the bit they got all stuck on. The other things that they got a little bit, they saw this console. The console's a lot of words and it's a lot of information, and it was very scary because I didn't know what it was. Then we had to explain what screen was and why we can put things in screen and how we can detach it so that the server stays running when we log out, etc., etc. So it was really good in that regards. Another one of the side things that we kind of learned was also not entering your details on public websites and use funny names. So what worked and what didn't work? I think I've actually probably gone over this. This is me jumping ahead again. I found humour and playing around actually works really, really well. It brings down the stereotype of I'm somehow better than them, or I'm a teacher and telling them what to do. They feel like they can approach you and ask you for things. I'm stuck on this thing. And I found I was also keenly aware of people who were left out. I don't know if you guys remember high school. For some of you, it might have been a very long time ago. There's little cliques, and you get your little girlfriends and cliques, and there's always like the odd one that's kind of maybe sitting aside or, not quite. Being able to approach that and bring them in and giving them the confidence to feel that they could do things as well without, and then they end up doing things together, which is kind of it's just a subtle way of bringing them together so they're not left out and not feeling, ignored. So, Rizz Master, how I became the Rizz Master. So we had labels for names, and there was obviously a trans girl in the club, one of the class, the first class, and I was like, nah, stuff this name. You guys put down whatever name you want to be known by today, and I don't care what it is. And so someone wrote me a label, and I was the Rizz Master. Rizz Master 3000, and from then on, the whole day I got called Mrs. Rizz Master. And for those who don't know, Rizz is like short for charisma. It's a slang that younger people know, and understanding those kind of things, because in my day it sounds awfully like something that's inappropriate. Accepting people's names and gender expression was absolutely massive because it's irrelevant. We're here to teach them tech. We're not here to do anything else. We want to avoid the whole stereotypes. We want to break down those stereotypes. And being fun, approachable, makes you less scary because you're not an authoritative figure. When you're an authoritative figure, people feel a little bit, especially those who have like a nervous thing, not very confident with coming up and asking a question because they feel like they're stupid. And then in fact, being stupid and different is good because, I mean, most of you will probably understand that there's a lot of people on the neurodiverse spectrums, various places in tech, and it's a good thing because you see things differently, you solve problems differently, you learn differently, which is also something that we have to be aware of because I might explain something and they're like, huh? And someone else next to me might explain the exact same thing in the same way and they're like, oh, okay. They've just said one word differently and someone's got it. And that's the difference between learning sometimes as well. Understanding the kids' language, which is again the Rizz Master thing again. If you play games online, you'll pick it up really quickly, or if you're on forums and stuff with kids. If you're in doubt and you don't know and you don't want to know, just use really old memes and repeat them a lot, and the kids will just piss themselves laughing because it will become a meme again. And this is what because some people are just not good with that shit, which is fine, you know, that's fine, you know. And that's just a way of kind of, it's that bonding, it's that being on their level, you know, having a bit of fun and whatnot. So it is helpful if you understand them though, you know, especially like, you know, acronyms and whatnot. So from the two different groups with two different teachers, I found, so the first group I had was the lower socioeconomic kids. I found they were a lot harder to get into things. They struggled with the confidence to start and do things because they assumed they were going to be told off or break things, or they didn't have the confidence in general to just do. But once they got into it, they were really loud, really raucous. For me, it was mentally a little bit more harder, but the reward at the end was fantastic because we had people in the beginning who were sitting by themselves on their phone like this. And by the end of it, that person was the only one who finished it. And they were laughing and they were giggling and they were yelling and just having great fun. And that was really rewarding to me. Whereas the second group, because they had a teacher who was female, who's in IT, she's shown them what you can do, how you can do it. They already knew that it was, she'd broken down a lot of those stereotypes already. And I actually talked to her afterwards and sat down and had an interview about what she sees in schools for different kids and stuff as well, to see if she notices differences between different groups, different genders, the whole works, and what she works with. So, you know, the kids that were, the teacher made a massive difference. Socioeconomic-wise, to a fair degree, I think it was the teacher, to be honest, that made the most difference. But the problem is teachers have got 30 kids in a class and one teacher, and they can't spend the time, and they don't get paid a whole lot, and they don't get a lot of resources either. So it's really good for these programs to be able to do that and give these kids the confidence to try things themselves in future. Yep, here we go, I'm repeating things again. So yeah, the confident kids who are smart, they were the ones that jumped ahead and they made more mistakes because they were confident and they knew that we could do it. But they were a little bit too cocky and yeah, things get broken and stuff. So, yeah, accessibility to devices was interesting because I would have thought kids being from a fairly well-off area would have, you know, decent laptops, etc. But they didn't. They brought tablets and they brought Chromebooks. It was quite difficult. We only had one laptop, I think, between the whole group. So I ended up using my laptop for the other one for them to use because they literally just didn't have the resources because everything they had was all just tablets. Whereas the second group, so the first group, which was the lower circuit, had all these old crappy laptops. It was great. So everyone had a laptop. They didn't have the newest, you know, iPad or whatever else. They just had an old laptop, but it actually made it easier because, you know, they had the Minecraft game. They didn't have to freaking do some kind of bedrock kind of thing, which was good. And back to the neurodiverse type stuff. These are some of the things I'm just gonna leave this here. I'm not gonna sit there and read it all out. But different people have different ways of learning and also different ways about solving problems, and some of those are really, really good, particularly in tech. And I think it's important to say that to girls because they think I'm odd, I'm strange, I don't, do things. So yeah, conversation versus confrontation. Don't tell a child what to do. Don't say, you need to do this. Say, what do we do next? You're giving them let them work it out, let them talk to it. Socioeconomic doesn't make a whole difference to the outcome, but it makes my reward better, for sure. But also, they don't get opportunities to do a lot of things as well, which is the big difference, I think, there. Strong role models made a massive, massive difference to how things worked and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to think this. So yeah, breaking down stereotypes, identifying people who are off by themselves and bringing them in, even if you're just, talking to them, whatever else. Positive reinforcement is massive. And I find having results-driven stuff, giving them results early, so I don't need to explain SSH, you can see the results of the SSH of connecting to a server. And the same goes, if you're giving them results, they feel that I've achieved something. Even if, and they can come back later on and learn those other, how we got here, and, break it down into other things later on. Yes, that is me for today. Does anybody have any questions?
If there are any questions, I'll come around with the mic.
So I covered everything? Everything.
Hi, thanks so much for the initiative. As a father of a young girl, I did notice it with my girl that she started with a lot of interest in tech, having a scientist as father, did a lot of circuit coding with me. But much before because she's going to high school just next year, she already dropped that interest. Then my question is, don't you think maybe that program should start a little bit earlier than high school?
I think high school, and actually probably, it's the peer pressure. When you get into high school, you have to be a certain thing. You've got hormones, you've got to have boys, girls thing, the whole peer pressure. And that's where I think a lot of girls lose their interest. But you'll find, I'm in IT, my husband's in IT. We deliberately didn't push our IT onto the kids because we want them to have their own choice in what they want to do for a living. But one of my daughters did decide to do some IT briefly, and she went in and she came out, she's like, gosh, they're teaching me really basic stuff. And she didn't realise how much she'd learnt just listening to us talk and being in the environment, and what was normal and what was not. People are coming in there going, how do we resize windows and change fonts? And she's like, what? But she always thought she was stupid. She's just dyslexic. And that's just it. You go in there feeling you're stupid, but you're not. And that's again, it. You can't push your child to do anything they don't want to do, but you can encourage them and show them things that, how to do things. But yeah, that's about it.
I'm interested to hear a bit more about the sort of spectrum of neurodiversity in those groups, particularly between, kids who know and have known for a long time that they're on the spectrum or that they have ADHD versus those that might just be sort of, struggling with it or sort of just on the cusp of finding it. Can you talk more to the experiences with that?
I'm a high school dropout. I was stupid all my life. I couldn't read till I was 8. I dropped out of high school at 16, I think. I did nothing. And it just turns out that I was ADHD and dyslexic, and I didn't realise that until I was 40s. And it's funny how you just find things that just work for you. It's my learning style, how I learn and how my brain thinks, and now I know better. But in the class, kids are being diagnosed really early now, and it's really good. We had a couple of kids who were absolutely ADHD and absolutely on the autism spectrum, and some of them just never shut up. It was great. But the ones that you could see, you could actually internally see that they're shut down. Their body language is shut down, and I think it was important to, she's good. She knows what she's doing. She's going for it. This person needs a little bit more, But also, again, it's the teaching style because everyone's brain is wired different and where they learn different. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not an authoritative on those things, by all means, or any of this. I'm just saying my experience here. I have talked to teachers. I've talked to quite a few other people who I know work with kids to not have too much confirmation bias, if I can help it. But also that was quite good for other things I'd never thought of. Anyone else?
We do still have quite a bit of time for questions, so ask away.
Or should we just play Minecraft? No? Just go lunch early?
All right.
Sorry, I finished early. I tried to make it last longer.
Finishing early's fine.
I saw you wave the thingy and I panicked and start brushing.
I actually waved at the wrong time.
Her fault.
All right, so here's a thank you for your welcome efforts, and hopefully the kids will have a very bright future.
We can hope.
All right, thank you, everyone. We still have, yes, another round of applause for her.